Magmar Golem death deck.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know, it's curious, right? Like, I think what's one nice thing about like these tournaments, right, is that hopefully people will know that like the players playing Magmar are probably going to want to play Golems, right? And, like we'll see what people can sort of come up with to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean so like that's like the next quest for everybody, right? Is like, hey, like how are we gonna deal with how are we gonna deal with this deck potentially in the future, or like like how does the deck change, right? Because like maybe this is another thing that like in testing and tournament formats, right? This is more information for the devs too to be like, hey, like this seems really ridiculously strong. So like how what lever do we tweak on this to make it? Because I mean, golems is it's kind of interesting because like it's basically pairing two strengths together for Magmar, right? Like they have cost reduction because they have big dudes and they have some big powerful cards right here, and like Twin Fang and Makator Warbeast, right? Like just like Vitruvian has like Scion's Second Wish, but they also have like this. The Golem component is like separate. That's like mostly neutral. I mean, it's all neutral minions. So like that's just another part that's like kind of combined with them, and the cost reduction with like Kajada and the stuff that's built into Magmar then swings that to be like ridiculously powerful, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's tricky, right? Because I think you're gonna find, right, like that in most of these games that like the neutral minion style decks, right, golems or Mechazor or like any of those decks is gonna be it's gonna find home in like one or two factions specifically, right? So it seems like right now at least that Magmar has the lockdown on like golems being their home. Like golems find home in Magmar. So it's gonna be a matter of tweaking that to see like if it's too powerful, or at the very least, seeing what other seeing what you can do to make it so maybe the other factions can play golems as well, or at least have some answers to that kind of play. I mean, I think it would be much different, right, if he was playing against like a well-designed Songhai deck, right? Because you'd have like Phoenix Fire, so
Yeah, I
like
mean,
way like
I
more
could
spells to
say
deal with it.
yeah, I could say from my experience, my success against Magmar has been pretty decent if I play a Songhai that's built to like basically kite and deal out the damage, because eventually like they have a lot of running around even though they get out lots of dudes, and Songhai has a lot of great like basically a ton of answers to kill a lot of the like the cost reduction minions, and
Mm-hmm.
Makatar is not as scary when when you're when you're not trying to like when minions aren't your main source of like trying to have board control. It's basically like,
Yeah,
okay, you're gonna kill that, and then I'm gonna like trace through to the other side of the board, and your Makatar is gonna take 3 turns or whatever to get back to me, and you're gonna be
yeah.
like casting minions to try to chase me around. And you play that game, and you can kind of whittle them down because a lot of these decks don't play Earth Sphere. They don't play anything that like is tough for Songhai damage decks like the like health buff type stuff, because that's the only thing that Songhai really cares about. Otherwise, you can just basically play this like kite game and just keep giving up minions and just make sure they don't get too much ridiculous stuff out, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of whittle them down. But it's its own interesting game, because a lot of times too, like eventually when players then start to get smarter, they hang minions back to like try to catch you, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I'm sort of yeah. I mean, it's sort of interesting, right? Because it's like it's at least somewhat clear to me that the Magmar deck with golems probably has some advantage over Vitruvian, like maybe in some small way. Because like as we saw, that first game was very back and forth. It was very close. Um, but I sort of wonder, like, if Vitruvian, like the main problem that Vitruvian's having is no way to just sort of like actionably clear the board without having minions of their own, right?
Yeah.
They kind of get stuck, like they get behind, and then if they get too far behind, like your opponent has 3 minions and you only have like one or something, it could be very hard to like actually like clear that board in such a way that you don't take huge losses to yourself. So I'm hoping that there turns out to be other ways, because Vitruvian seems to play the best when they have like they play a very strong game when they have like one or two obelisks in play and like etc.
Yeah. So it seems like, yeah. I mean, it's sounding like it's like too. It's like you have the. I mean, they're both very strong decks, like in factions at this point. But like Vitruvian, definitely like they just kind of have a lot of weaknesses that Magmar exploits, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily that like the Magmar deck like can't be beaten. It's just that like in this matchup with the two strong decks, like your likely opponents are probably going to be, like especially in this case, like Vitruvian. In that case, like you exploit a lot of their stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also curious to see how a more traditional, like non-Golem Magmar deck would stack up to Vitruvian as well. Like that would be sort of a curious matchup, right? Because then you'd have more the dispel cards that Vitruvian has would actually gain a lot more value there. Like on the like 1/7 grow guy and stuff.
All right. Well, I don't know. Do you have anything to add to this Deceptical? You still hanging around?
Yeah, I'm still here. Sorry. Nothing in particular. John's covered pretty much all of it that I was gonna say.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, how from your perspective, like, how'd the tournament go for you? Because I know you won some games and you played against a line art player. We had very few line art players actually in this tournament. Like, and you played against Orin, who actually had a deck that kind of played similar to Magmar. I feel like where it's like it's getting out tons of efficient, like, cheap costing units, and then it plays that trade game against Vitruvian. Like, how did those games go for you?
Orin was able to dump like his entire hand turn after turn after turn, which was just destroying me on the unit tempo. Trying to think the other sick plays he had, because he managed to like explode my obelisks without. Oh yeah, he had multiple Regalias, which I wasn't playing around as best as I could, and then towards the end of game 1, I cast Maelstrom, did not get my extra mana, so I was not able to Star Fury, Science, Second Wish to turn the game around, which I won't lie, made me a little salty. And then going into game 2, I couldn't shake that, and I made an early misplay, and I tilted and lost. It's essentially how those games went. Yeah, Lionheart just having like the most stat efficient guys in the game as their shtick is really hard to bring it back once they just drop so many. He didn't even what's it called, the 2 mana +1/+1, which would have just sent those games over the edge. Also, New Lion is a nightmare to play against.
they buffed its health, right? That's what was like one of the main changes.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, he doesn't die after he's murdered all your stuff.
well, and he plays better with the Sentinel, right? Because the Sentinel now can buff him and it won't die, right? Because I thought before, like if you buffed it with Sentinel, when it didn't, because it had less health, it would die if it hit your general, right? So you couldn't get 2 swings.
Yeah.
But now since it has 5 health, you Sentinel it, you don't even need Divine Bond, and you're still getting huge value out of it, like at like 10 damage.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Sentinel is one of the coolest new. Well, it's not new, but he got like cost reduced, so that he's more of a rush guy now. And I've been seeing a lot of him, and he's one of the cooler cards that I didn't use when I made my Lion Wombo deck, and he would have done a lot of cool things for it even back then.
Yeah, the new Lion is it's interesting. Like they made it kind of interesting in the sense that it now competes with slots with Ironcliff Guardian. And in addition to competing with slots with Ironcliff Guardian, the new Provoke the Brawler guy, the 4/4 with Celerity, doesn't compete with the Sentinel anymore either. So they sort of Lion are sort of interesting in that they stratified a lot of the costs, like the different kinds of effects across the costs. So you actually have real decisions to make in deck building, like if you want Cat or Ironcliff, etc.
Yeah, so I actually watched a bunch of the other games through this, so there's actually going to be some like cool games we can go back and cast. I know Joyful Rogue actually had some really good games against Kage Panda, who's a new player I had been playing as he like joined the game and playing through. I know he has some other friends that are Kage theme named, but there's actually some really good plays in their matchup. And actually, unfortunately, Joyful Rogue should have won, but he missed lethal because basically what happened was he saw that Kage Panda was at 13 health, and he just he missed, like he looked away or something when Kage Panda just traded with his general, so he went down to 11. So on his turn he had like 12 damage, but he just kept in his head, since he wasn't looking at the general, he just calculated as 13. So he's like, 1 damage short, and like didn't actually go through the combo and then died. And then later like realized on his stream, as everybody was telling him, it's like, dude, you had lethal. And it's just like I don't know. There were some cool plays, especially so Kage Panda had one where like what's the liner guy that silences.
Oh, Sunstone Templar.
Yeah, so the Sunstone Templar had come on the board earlier, and Kage actually played a Pumbaa into it and had the Pumbaa hit it, so that it removed the part where it died at the end of his next turn. And so he had a 3/3 Pumbaa that was permanent, and I was like, that's actually like I didn't think about that before as like a good play or like a liability for that card.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, like I don't know.
I describe that as curing Pumbaa's depression.
Yeah. It's funny when Pumbaa gets silenced. It's like it's weird because like generally speaking, the drawback on Pumbaa isn't like a significant drawback. It's a drawback in the sense that like if it somehow doesn't die, it's forced to die. But generally speaking, with Pumbaa, you're gonna hit 2 things, and like that's definitely gonna make up the 4 attack to kill him. So it's interesting how there are those occasions though where the Sunstone Templar or what have you can actually do some great harm to yourself on accident. It's fun though. I thought it was a good tournament. That was good stuff. Thanks for running it.
Yeah, I mean it played really quick. I mean it's 2 p.m. We're done. So
yeah,
that's actually pretty awesome. So I mean ultimately took 3 hours or so.
Yeah, I think if we did double a limit, probably wouldn't even last that much longer.
No, because in theory, right, like double limbs, like one more round, essentially, like it would add to the tournament on top of what we did. So I think, I agree with you. I think we could go to double limb for next tournament, and it'd give people a way to kind of like stick in longer and have more matches, which I'm always for.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it would be cool too. It seemed like how many participants did we have today?
We had 40.
40. That's pretty good. So hopefully as Joyful Rogue's been streaming the game now. Joyful Rogue's a huge strategy game player, so it's it'll be neat to see as more streamers and people from other communities come to Duelyst and see what kind of wacky things they bring. Because for me, like in Duelyst, I sort of bring like 10 years of playing Magic the Gathering, so it's sort of like that's my background in card games. But other people have played like all sorts of different games and have very different takes on what kind of decks they want to play and build. So it should be exciting as it goes forward.
Yeah, I mean, you got the Fire Emblem players and the XCOM players and like the turn-based guys that come to it, but then you also have like, again, like you said, like the Magic the Gathering and like card game players. And so, yeah, I think overall I'm super happy with the game, especially with this tournament. I think everybody from what I saw was super awesome playing their matches. There was lots of GGs, even from the people that lost. Like a lot of players that even got knocked out first round had a lot of fun. Were pinging me, thanking me about for running the tournament. But overall, I'm glad we had this, and it's cool to see like the hip chat is still full of people chatting about stuff, and the forums definitely being active too, like around the tournament. So hopefully, like there is a upcoming March tournament that Ash is running as well. So that's another opportunity for people that they're going to be able to jump in. So if you haven't signed up for that, you can check it out on the forums. I think there's more rules updates and stuff that are coming out tomorrow, so you can find out more about it. And then this tournament series will be continuing as we go along, and we're going to try to run it every 2 weeks or so. But we'll see how it goes, and we'll see how we plan around it. But yeah, a lot of fun. Congratulations to Saracen for winning the tournament, and everybody else for playing. Good games.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for bringing me and everyone along. It was really fun, and like good hard work. It ran super well, so that was awesome.
Yeah, and hopefully, this will be good for future tournaments, kind of setting the groundwork. And we're also, I know I'm going to get with the Sceptical and yourself if you're interested, Joseki, and I'm going to compile all the VODs that people have submitted, and we'll cast a few of them or talk about them and just kind of release more content basically from this tournament for people that didn't get a chance to get shoutcasted and just record their matches and wanted to, and just kind of like show some of the other games and matchups that happen, some of the cool stuff. So if you guys are down for that, we'll be trying to post some of them up or work on them tomorrow and get some of them up throughout the day.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Yep. Thank you guys.
Definitely.